Good afternoon everyone. I am Mrs. K. Sowjanya, ME, Assistant Professor of Information Technology of ETHICAL, Basic Engineering College. So in this video, I am going to share some basic concepts of ethical hacking and what are all the some nook and corner concepts or what are all the overview of the concepts present in ethical hacking. Let me explain with one by one. The very first thing before entering into this ethical hacking subject, first we have to know what is the meaning of that particular subject and for what purpose we are studying this subject. So the subject name or course name I am dividing into two parts. The first one is ethical and second part is hacking. Now let me explain what is meant by ethical. So the ethical people are very awareness about it is the first one is ethical. The ethical means whatever the process we are carried out in the society, that should be processed with some standards and principles that should not be harm to any society. So that we call it as ethical. And second one is hacking. So what do you mean by hacking is nothing but, so we are going to steal some data or any information from authorized users or any some target mission. So combining with these two terms, ethical and hacking, what is defined as is anything you are going to hack or anything you are going to steal some information from authorized users or unauthorized users or any some target mission with some standards and as well as that should not harm any society or any organization. So that is called ethical hacking. So next one is types of hackers are present here. So now let me explain one by one what are all the types of hackers and for what purpose they are using. So there are three types of hackers. The first one is white hat hackers, second one is black hat hackers, and third one is grey hat hackers. Now white hat hackers. So the white hat hackers is your professionally hackers. That means they learn what are all the hacking techniques present in the market and they get certified, professionally certified by some authorized organization, and those hackers are employed in some organization only for the hacking the data or information from the any other users or any other target mission. So the second one is black hat hackers. So these black hat hackers, they are not professionally certified, but they learn some other YouTube sources or any other sources or any website sources or anything, but they are using only hacking purpose only for negative purpose alone. That means they are not professionally certified. They use only for stealing the data or some getting the data only for their own purpose alone. The third one is grey hat hackers. People know that the combination of white and black will get grey color. So similarly the same concept is present here. The white and black combination of grey hat hackers. What does mean that grey hat hackers? 50% of people, they are professionally certified from the hacking institution and 50% they don't have any knowledge. For example, if I am employed with any other organization as a hacker, so I am 50% with that designation, I am hacking some information for organization purpose and 50% I am using for my negative purpose also. So the 50% I am using the organization, stealing the data for positive manner, 50% of stealing my data only for negative purpose also. So these are all the types of the hackers. Next one is important terminologies present in ethical hacking. So what are all the terminologies present in ethical hacking? The first one is asset. So the general meaning of asset, we know that the property refers to land, gold, cash, currency or whatever it is. So when the same concept, when I apply to this ethical hacking, the asset here in this course we refer to as any data or information or any physical devices that gives some information. These are all things we call it as asset. Whatever the things we are going to steal from authorized users or unauthorized users for our purpose or for our organization institution, we refer to as asset. The second one is vulnerability. Vulnerability is nothing but there is some weakness or some flaws present in some account. For instance, if you are using any bank account or email ID, we want some information from others' email ID purpose means We might have know that some password they may keep as a password, very simple password like 1234 or whatever it is. So we are using their weakness as our advantage and we are stealing their data without knowing them. So this is we call it as vulnerability, and as well as that may cause or that may harm our others' target machine. Target machine is nothing but from which organization or from which device we are stealing the data, we call it as target machine. So the vulnerability will shortly refers to the what? So our data we are stealing without the knowledge of the authorized users by identifying their weakness or flaws. This we call it as vulnerability. And the third one is threat. The threat is nothing but the possibility of danger that will occur to us as well as, but we won't think that that will be happen. For example, accident. It will be happen by instance. It will happen as accident, but we won't think that it won't be happen. So that is what threat. Fourth one is exploit. Exploit is nothing but we are taking the advantage of vulnerability. As I told you earlier, that I explained what is meant by vulnerability. Exploit is nothing but we are taking an advantage of the vulnerability to harm or to steal the data of the authorized users or some other organization. And last one is the risk. The risk is the combination of asset, vulnerability, threat and exploit. So that means the formula will define you as risk is equal to threat into exploit into vulnerability. So these combination of four terms we call it as risk. So these are the 5 important terminologies that is present in ethical hacking. And next one is your penetration test. Penetration test is nothing but in penetration test the hackers or some team members they experiment something by using some methods or procedures for testing or procedures to get some information from the organization, or they repeatedly they calculate some possibilities in what way we can able to steal the information or in what way we can get the information. So they repeatedly they follow on some possibilities to get the information. So for that purpose they are using some methods and procedures. So that for carrying out some methods and procedures we call it as penetration test. Next one is the vulnerability assessment versus penetration test. So there is a comparison between vulnerability assessment and penetration test. What do you mean by vulnerability assessment? So as I explained you earlier, what you people know that what is meant by vulnerability. The vulnerability is nothing but any flaws or any weakness we have identified from other authorized users. From that weakness we are stealing that information, we called it as vulnerability. Now what is meant by vulnerability assessment? So what are all the vulnerabilities carried out in particular target machine, or what are all the vulnerabilities is carried out in some other organization or any other authorized users, that things we have to list out in some database. So that we call it as vulnerability assessment. Second one is your penetration test. Penetration test, as I told you earlier, there is some methods and procedures they are following. From that methods and procedures they are going to exploit the vulnerability. So there is difference between vulnerability assessment and penetration test. So that is, it will be what? There is some different formula or different procedure they are carried out in vulnerability assessment and penetration test as well. The next one is your pre-engagement. Pre-engagement is nothing but it just kind of a group discussion or it just kind of a brainstorming session. What do you mean by brainstorming session? There will be, for example, I am going to give some real-time example. Suppose in my college there is some hacking is occurred. What we have to do? We'll approach some organization like TCS or for instance I am saying we are approaching some TCS or Wipro. I am requesting that organization please recover our data. Some hacking purposes carried out in our information in our organization. So what happens? From that organization, the higher officials will come to our organization and they will ask about all the queries, what are all the procedures they have to recover, what are all the data they have stealed out, what are all the data we have to recover. So the discussion among the two organizations. The first organization is the organization which got harmed from some hackers. The second one is the organization which is going to recover our data. So there will be some group discussion, or there will be some simple conversations, what are all the things we have to carry, how we can recover the data, what are all the procedures or methods we have to use to recover the data, or any other tools we have to follow to recover the data. Some simple conversations will be carried out between the two organizations. So this we call it as pre-engagement. The simple conversation we call it as what? Pre-engagement. So next one is rules of engagement. As I told you earlier, people know that what is meant by pre-engagement. Now rules of engagement. Rules of engagement is nothing but what are all the discussion, what are all the conversation we carry between the two organizations. For instance, start and end date. When we have to start that procedure, when we have to end that procedure. For example, I am allocating the 1 month declare from December 1 to December 31st. So within this 31 days, you have to recover our data. This is your time duration, or this is your project duration. That is what start and end date. Next is your permission to hack and non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreement is nothing but this is not transparent agreement. This agreement is only known between some higher officials alone. The statements or the steps which is entered in agreement, that should not be transparent to all the employees present in two organizations. So this means this is not transparent agreement. This is very confidential agreement that will be occurred between any other two users of higher officials or some other authorized users alone. The third one is the scope of engagement. Scope of engagement is nothing but for what purpose we are going to have this discussion, or for what purpose we are going to recover that data, and the goals carried out throughout this 1 month. 1 month in the sense, as I told you, for example, I have told you that December 1 to December 31st. So within this 31 days, what are all the goals we have to carry out to recover that data, our scope. So this we call it as scope of engagement. So the fourth one is project duration. The project duration I have told you is what? 31 days. It may be varied based upon the recovering of data. It may get delayed for some purposes. For example, if I signed an agreement for December 1 to December 31. At the end of the December, it may extend. It based upon the recovering of data, or it based upon the methods or procedures they are following on. So this is project duration. The project duration is not stable. It is dynamic one because it may extend for few weeks or few days, like that. The last one is allowed and disallowed techniques. So in allowed and disallowed techniques, we have to give some authorization to some other organization. You can follow these techniques, or you can use only this kind of websites. You should not enter into this kind of websites to recovering the data. We have to allow them. We have to give some, it may be kind of agreement purposes, it may be kind of in network as well, will give some encryption key or decryption key or whatever it is. So we have to give some authorization to access them to recover the data. This is what allowed and disallowed techniques. So these are all the steps we are following, the rules of engagement. That means what are all the conversations we are following. This we called it as rules and engagement. And the next thing is penetration testing methodologies. So as I told you, the penetration test we carried out some methods and procedures. So what is the methods and procedures they carry in penetration test? These three methods only they are carried out for recovering the data or testing some data. The first one is OSSTMM, is an open source security testing methodology manual. Usually any organization, they won't suggest this first one. Why? Because it is a very cumbersome process. Cumbersome process, it has infinity number of steps. Starts from information gathering to reporting. It has infinity number of steps. In case of infinity number of steps, the payment will be more and the time duration will leads to 6 months or 1 year or whatever it is. So many organizations, they won't suggest this first one. The second one is NIST. N is National Institute of Standard and Technology. This procedure have only 4 steps. What are all the 4 steps? Plan, discover, attack and report. The first one is planning. What do you mean by planning? What are all the data we are going to recover? What procedure we are going to? In what way we are going to recover the data? How we are going to find the hacker? So some planning, this is called, comes under planning. Next is discover. In discover, I am going to divide this into 2 parts. The first part is from information gathering. What are all the details stolen? What are all the data or corrupted? So these are all comes under information gathering. The second part is vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability assessment, what are all the dangers, what are all the data are corrupted, that we are going to list. So these 2 parts will come under discover. Third one is attack. Attack means in what way, if suppose, in what way if I go there, I can, that means we have the attacker want in what the procedure, we have to find that hacker. That is the attack. The fourth one is report. Everything we have to report from planning, discover, attack, that should be documented. Why we are documenting all these purposes means for future purpose. Suppose the same hacking procedures happen in future, maybe after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, the documentation will help for the other employees to recover the data. The last one is your OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project. So this is based upon application penetration test. So they are mainly work only about the application oriented alone. So they will work on the testing procedures only in applications. So what are all the applications present here? The applications alone, they'll calculate some possibilities or like that. So this is OWASP. So these 3 methodologies alone they are following in any organization for testing or they are recovering the data or how to recover the data. The next one is categories of penetration test. Categories of penetration test is black box, white box penetration test, grey box penetration test. As I told you earlier, types of hackers. What do you mean by types of? There is also what? Only 3 types presented. White hacker, black hacker and grey hacker. The same thing here also, black box penetration testing, white box penetration testing and grey box testing. In white box penetration testing, the hacker knows complete information about the organization. So that we called it as white box penetration testing. For example, take I am going to hack some information in this organization. I know entire information about this organization, whatever it is, the network topologies, the network IP address, whatever it is, based on acquired knowledge, I am going to process some hacking testing. So that we call it as white box penetration testing. Next one is black box penetration testing. I am not having any knowledge, that means zero knowledge, complete zero knowledge about this organization. Without knowing any knowledge, I am performing some hacking methodologies. That we call it as black box penetration testing. And grey box penetration testing is nothing but I know 50% of information about this organization, 50% of information I don't know about this. So that comes under grey box. For example, my friend, I know my friend's email ID, but I don't know her password. So that the known mail ID we called it as 50% of information is known. The password I don't know. I have to some possibilities I have to put some password, I have to steal the data from her mail ID. So this is the combination we called it as grey box penetration testing. And last one is your types of penetration testing. So there is 5 types of penetration testing is present here. The first one is network penetration testing. Network penetration testing can be divided into 2 types, internal penetration as well as external penetration. In internal penetration is the hacker or any other procedures carried out internally in the sense deeply in the network. We called it as internal network penetration test. External penetration test is nothing, just I am going to test or just I am applying some procedures or methods only in IP address alone. That will come under external network penetration test. Second one is web application penetration test. Suppose I am using some bank account. I know that credit card numbers, usernames from the credit card numbers or debit card numbers or from usernames. For example, I know the ATM PIN numbers. So the from the ATM PIN numbers I can able to apply some methods or some testing procedures. That will come under web application penetration test. The third one is mobile application penetration test. The methods or procedures that carries only on mobile application alone, the Android OS or iOS. So such kind of OS alone we are going to apply some testing or procedures that comes under mobile application penetration test. The fourth one is social engineering penetration test will comes under phishing attacks. What do you mean by phishing attacks? For example, my mail ID is Sowjanya-191IT7313-ETHICAL.org. The same mail ID can be created by some XX person. He is sending message as like as what? That I am sending. As like Sowjanya is sending a message, he will create some Sowjanya-191. The duplication of the mail ID. The duplication of the mail ID, from that mail ID he is sending some messages. So these will harm this some confidential information also it will harm, or they can get some confidential informations also. So such kind of things comes under phishing attacks. So from the testing of or deleting the duplication of accounts or deleting the duplication of email IDs, this and all will comes under social engineering penetration test. The last one is physical penetration test. Physical penetration test is nothing but this RFID or logs or whatever it is. In movies and all you can see that in outer of the house they'll hang that biometric machines and all. If we break that the machines and all, that means the owner of the house can't able to find out the particular hackers who is entering inside the house. So these are all they will come under physical penetration testing. So these are all the topics the overview of the ethical hacking. Hope you people